So we've gone through a number of different workouts now where I've either said we're going to hardstyle snatch or we are going to now sport style snatch. So let's break these down as part of the warm-up. So the hardstyle hinge, we're going to do 5 swings per side. I think to teach this one first is important because this is where the fundamentals begin, but it's also important to understand that in any swing sport, whether it's baseball, tennis, golf, you have different swings. In tennis, you've got a serve, you've got volleys, you've got overhand, you have backhand, but you're still hitting the ball. So in kettlebell sport, we're doing a different swing, but it's not necessarily better or worse than what we've done with the hardstyle. So the hardstyle, square hips, I'm extending the knees and extending the hips simultaneously as I get a more aggressive swing. So let's go 5 swings per side, extending through the hips and the knees almost violently, and then down onto the ground. I'm gonna change sides. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, and this hardstyle swing, again, good to learn the fundamentals because we're keeping and relating that relationship to a hinge, like a deadlift. What we want to apply this for is more strength and power type workouts. The sport style hinge is more of an endurance type swing. So now what we do, we've talked about this double dip. We're fundamentally still going to be doing the same flexion extension cycles for the swing, but now as we come back down, we're going to absorb. And as I absorb, I'm bending my knees. It's almost counterintuitive to what I've told a lot of you about catch the bell late. We still catch the bell late, but we do it in the form of a extension on the way back up. So I want to dip, extend, and now I've locked out dip and extend. So what this looks like, we're gonna try 5 of these hinges and 5 swings per side. Everything's gonna look the same from the setup. I'm up, dip, hinge, okay, dip, hinge. Notice how I've got this little extra dip. I still lock out the hamstrings at the back. Okay, I still lock out the hamstrings at the back. My back is still straight. So you can try that one. You don't want to be reaching. Those fundamentals remain the same. So I hinge, I dip, 3, 2, 1. Okay. And it feels a little different. Some of you may have already adopted that swing and that style, and that's completely fine. But where this really becomes important is when the bell starts to drop down. So the trajectory of the bell. So now we're gonna get into the high pull. So as that high pull bell trajectory starts to come down, we use that dip almost to help redirect the bell to take off some of the load from our hands or our grip. So as I go, we're gonna go 5 high pulls per side. So I want to high pull, absorb, high pull. See how I bend those knees just before and just at actually those knees, the bell is floating down, begin to bend as soon as I start to get tension into the grip. Okay, so 5 high pulls per side just so you can feel how that bend now changes the trajectory of that bell as it comes down and alleviates the need to have all grip through the hands. Okay, and what I mean all grip through the hands is you get to use a little bit of your hamstrings. Now the next part, intermediate point here. Because in the sport style snatch, we can't get into this is called the half snatch or the reverse press. You have to go straight down. Fundamentally, we need to make sure that you're doing this in your grip properly. So first and foremost, you're at a false grip. This is what it should look like overhead. So when I am overhead in my snatch position, okay, I am open up. It's not like a press where I'm squeezing, I'm open. This is an extension of my arm. It's important that you are inside this position here. Otherwise, throwing it out into the next part is going to be a lot tougher and you're not going to get the rest, momentary rest in your grip. So overhead, screwing the shoulder into the socket. Notice how we talked about screwing that shoulder in the socket in that overhead position. my hand is not completely facing forward. It's slightly rotated inwards. Now, let's take a step backwards and go into that front rack position. It's almost the same. I don't have to worry too much about screwing the shoulder in socket because my arm is not straight overhead. But now what I want to do is I want to throw this bell out into my fingers. Now I use the term palm knuckles, okay, or your proximal distal crease, all right, your PDF, that little where your calluses form. That area there, you want to try and skip past. So when the bell goes from this false grip into the fingers, if your hands are ripping, it's because you're catching your palm knuckles. So when I go to throw this bell out from the clean, I want to literally throw it into the fingers. Now, if you feel yourself catching your palm knuckles, okay, that's just a timing issue. I want you to try and bypass that by getting the bell, the handle of the bell, to go into the fingers. All right, and you'll feel, sometimes you'll have bad reps where you do catch those palm knuckles, right? And then what happens is you squeeze it, and when you squeeze the bell and you open up your fingers, you're gonna see the line across the calluses. We wanna try to avoid that. So when the bell comes into the fingers, it's on top of the crease, but I am not in the crease, okay, if that makes sense. I'm gonna be in the fingers, so I wanna be in those fingers. So I want you to try and get 5 cleans that are clean, okay, we want 5 cleans that are clean in a sense that you can go from that false grip, okay, straight into the fingers. All right, straight into the fingers. Throw that bell out. So I switch arms here. Okay, you can also, you can throw in right now, we're working, this drill is specifically for that grip change, but you're also gonna now be introducing, this is the sport swing to help with that timing. If you're still doing a hardstyle swing, that's fine. Okay, it's just fundamentally the hardstyle is gonna use up a little bit more energy. Now, you're still, okay, swinging late. So I'm watching some of you because I don't want you to think that the double dip is an invitation to do this. Okay, you still need to keep your hips open. I'm bending my knees sooner, but I am not opening my hips. I need to keep them closed. I am not closing my hips. I need to keep them open, right? I'm staying up tall. So I throw it out and then I bend. Don't get into this position, okay? And start swinging like this. It's gonna get transferred into the snatch. Okay, so now, moving into the overhead position. But just before, I want you to notice the squareness in a hard style, okay? Squareness in a hard style versus the rotation in a sport style. Now, when I rotate, I am loading up one leg more so than the other. So as I have the bell in my left hand, my right leg is going to take on more of that tension. It's not that the left leg's not doing any work, but I want to try and load up the one leg. I am not rotating through the mid-spine. I'm rotating through the hips and the mid-back. So as I come down, I'm going to offset by just a little bit. I'm going to look down over the leg that's getting loaded up. So try 5 swings aside where we go off to the side and think about, if you can see this here, I'll do it with my right leg. So my right arm, I should say, so my left leg's taking up a lot of the slack. Look at my right heel as it comes off of the ground. So as I swing, I can lift that heel off the ground. It's not that I'm exaggerating it a bit right now, but what I want to demonstrate is that weight on the same leg as the arm that's swinging gets transferred into the opposite leg as the bell comes down. All right, and that is a factor of the bell not being straight as it comes down and us not being square as we catch that bell. So as that bell comes down, we are going to be rotating just a little bit. Okay, this naturally happens when the bell comes from the overhead position. So let's get into this overhead position. Overhead position, I've got my false grip. Now, from this overhead position, the corkscrew. All right, the corkscrew is, I am going to rotate. I'm going to unlock my finger, my shoulder by rotating my pinky forwards. Okay, it's a little bit counterintuitive, but what happens here is I unlock, and as I rotate the pinky forwards, I'm going to lean back As I rotate the pinky forwards, I'm gonna lean back. And as that happens, I simultaneously throw the bell into the fingers. All right, now everything we've just worked on should happen automatically. So from pinky rotating forwards, simultaneously leaning back, I throw the bell. Okay, I'm in the fingers, I'm not in the palm knuckles. I get into my sport style swing. I've got a slight rotation, and then I come back up into the snatch and reset here. So with the moderate weight, try 5 reps per side. Really exaggerates that pinky rotation. So if I go through, okay, I'm gonna rotate that pinky. Rotate the pinky. Throw it into the fingers. Okay, rotate that pinky. And then back down. Okay, so it'll feel a bit weird at first, especially if you haven't been doing it like this. And it's also important to note that this isn't a better swing. Okay, it's not a better swing. It's a different swing, different application. So with that position, okay, don't forget to lean back. So if you don't lean back and you just let that bell come forwards, it's gonna pull you forwards, right? So overhead, rotate the pinky forwards, simultaneously lean back, throw it out in front, and get back in to that swing. Okay, get back in to that swing. The good news is the next 7 minutes is going to be all snatches. So you get to work on it.